Coco Gauff labels American fan support the worst, in blunt Australian swing confession. Coco Gauff offers a reality check on American fan presence during her Australian swing, choosing honesty over diplomacy as she settles into United Cup duty in Perth. Ahead of the 2026 team event, the two-time Grand Slam champion acknowledged that American players often travel without the same visible wave of support enjoyed by competitors from smaller nations, a truth she delivered plainly while still expressing hope that more U.S. fans might attend as the tournament progresses. Inside the United Cup, format, timing, and what's at stake. The moment came as Gauff prepared for the United Cup, which has quickly become one of the most distinctive opening acts on the tennis calendar. Played across Perth and Sydney from January 2nd to 11th, the event combines ADP and WTA players in a national team format, putting pride and camaraderie at the forefront. For the United States, the stakes are higher this year as the defending champions from 2025, with Gauff and Taylor Fritz leading a roster that also includes Mackenzie McDonald, Varvara Lepchenko, Christian Harrison, Nicole Mellicher-Martinez, and Captain Michael Russell. In such a setting, crowd support becomes especially noticeable, and that context framed the question posed to Gauff during her pre-tournament press conference. Why does Coco Gauff believe American tennis fans lag behind globally? When asked whether she feels there is a strong American contingent supporting her in Australia, Gauff did not sugarcoat her response. "I'll be honest, no," she said. She elaborated by placing American tennis support in a global context, adding, "I feel like we're definitely, in the tennis department, the worst when it comes to that." Gauff explained that she often admires how fans from smaller countries rally behind their players worldwide, saying, "I've always said I wish our country and other places would show up throughout the world as we see maybe smaller countries support." Rather than framing it purely as a criticism, she also acknowledged the broader sports culture in the United States, noting, "But I also think it's just because of our country is good in so many sports, so it's just hard." She then drew a distinction between different stops on the Australian swing, adding, "I definitely think there are Americans that come out more in Melbourne than necessarily here," before expressing a specific hope for the later stages of the event. "But I would like to see some more Americans if we make it to Sydney than there were last year," she said. Team USA has been placed in Group A with Argentina and Spain and will open its United Cup campaign against Argentina. The opening tie will begin with Fritz going up against Sebastián Baez in the first singles rubber, followed by a second singles match featuring Gauff against Solana Sierra. The summer sun in Australia has a way of exposing truths. It bakes the blue courts until they shimmer, pulls sweat from every pore, and strips athletes down to their most honest selves. For Coco Gauff, the Australian swing, those early season tournaments that feel like both a fresh start and a trial by fire, became a mirror. In that reflection, she saw not just her forehand or footwork, but something heavier, the complicated sound of American fan support. Or, as she bluntly labeled it, the worst. It was a confession that rippled far beyond the baseline. Coco Gauff is used to noise. From the moment she burst into global consciousness as a teenager, the crowd has been her constant companion. Cheers have followed her like a shadow, sometimes warm, sometimes suffocating. In the United States, those cheers often arrive wrapped in expectation. They are loud, patriotic, and relentless. They carry the weight of a nation hungry for its next champion, eager to anoint, quick to question. Australia, by contrast, offered distance. The fans were still loud, still passionate, but they were not hers in the same way. Their cheers did not come preloaded with childhood highlights, Nike commercials, or the myth of destiny. And in that distance, Coco found clarity. When she called American fan support the worst, it wasn't an act of betrayal. It was an act of honesty. At first glance, the statement sounds ungrateful. After all, what athlete wouldn't want thousands of people chanting their name? But Coco's words peeled back a layer that rarely gets discussed. The difference between support and pressure, between encouragement and ownership. American fans, especially in tennis, don't just cheer, they claim. A player becomes a symbol, a storyline, a promise. Every match is no longer just a contest, it's a referendum on potential. On the Australian hard courts, Coco felt the contrast sharply. The crowd would clap a great rally regardless of who won it. Applause came without demands. Losses didn't feel like disappointments delivered to a living room back home. Wins didn't feel like debts to be repaid. The freedom was subtle but powerful. There is a particular loneliness in being America's prodigy. You are never fully alone, yet rarely unburdened. Every serve carries echoes of should win, should dominate, should be the future, now. When American fans cheer, they often cheer the idea of you as much as the person standing on the court. Coco Gauff, still young but already seasoned, has learned to hear the difference. Her Australian swing confession wasn't born from bitterness, it was born from growth. It came from realizing that love, when mixed with expectation, can become heavy. That support can feel conditional when it is tied to results. That sometimes the loudest applause is also the hardest to carry. In Australia, she was allowed to just play. The honesty of her words startled people because athletes are expected to smile and nod, to thank the fans no matter the cost. But Coco has never fit neatly into expectations. She speaks with the confidence of someone who understands her own mind. By naming the discomfort, she reclaimed control over her narrative. And perhaps that's what unsettled some listeners most. American sports culture thrives on intensity. It celebrates passion, volume, loyalty. But it doesn't always leave room for nuance. Coco's comment challenged the idea that more noise is always better, that national pride is always uplifting. It asked an uncomfortable question. Who is the support really for? For Coco, tennis is already a battle. Against opponents, against nerves, against the thin margins that define elite sport. Adding the emotional weight of an entire country's expectations can turn love into static. Her confession was not a rejection of fans, but an invitation for them to evolve. Imagine support that breathes. Cheers that rise without clinging. Belief that doesn't demand proof every match. The Australian swing gave Coco a glimpse of that possibility. Far from home, she found a version of herself that felt lighter. Not lesser, lighter. And in that lightness, her game spoke more freely. Wins felt earned, losses felt instructive, and the court felt like a place of expression rather than obligation.